3 of the ex-cops who beat Tyre Nichols to death at a traffic stop just walked free on murder charges, but they still got to face the feds for now. If you don't remember this story, because there's been a lot. Sadly, these kinds of stories happen way too often. But this was a particular story that I think you all might remember. Tyre Nichols was a 29-year-old black man who was pulled over, dragged out of his car, and beaten so badly that he died 3 days later. Now, the autopsy, quite appropriately, I would argue, called this a homicide. Now, look at these guys. These are the officers that did it. Darius Bean, Justin Smith, Demetrius Haley, Desmond Mills Jr., and Emmett Martin. Yes, all black cops. We'll talk about that in a minute. A Tennessee jury just found former Memphis officers Smith, Bean, and Haley not guilty of second-degree murder and kidnapping, even after we watched, literally all of America watched the video of Nichols being stomped out like a dog in the street. The feds already convicted them of obstruction charges last year, and their sentencing for that is set for June. So while the state let them slide on the big charges, Uncle Sam still got something to say. 2 other former officers, that's Emmett Martin and Desmond Mills, already flipped. They snitched. They took pleas and they testified. Now, Mills's deal is locked in, but Emmett Martin is still waiting to see what he gets. With this administration, who fucking knows? He may end up the head of the National Police Misconduct Oversight Committee. You know what I'm saying? Like this, everything's topsy-turvy, upside down in this moment. I remember still doing cable news at the time, and I remember anchoring the coverage of the story, reporting it several nights. And this was so disturbing, so scary, so disgusting what they did to Tyre Nichols. And there was enough evidence to make it very clear that these officers were guilty. And the autopsy, the physical evidence, the medical evidence all suggested guilty. And yet, here we are. Why does this happen? How does this happen? In this country, we have there's 2 things happening. One is, of course, we have a certain kind of understanding of black life just not being worth that much. There's also a presumption that black bodies are inherently and irreversibly dangerous. So whether you're Rodney King being beaten by LA cops, or whether you're Tyre Nichols being dragged to death by, Memphis police officers, doesn't matter how many cops there are, doesn't matter how innocent you are, it doesn't matter how non-threatening you are, it doesn't matter how unarmed you are, you're still seen as violent and dangerous. And so when that juror gets in that seat and evaluates the crime, even when they see that you were unarmed, and even when they look at the dashboard camera, or even when they look at the videotape in the case of Rodney King, they say, yeah, but if I was a police officer, I might have done the same thing. And so they invoke the reasonable man standard, which unfortunately is used often to codify irrational white supremacist fears about black people, right? The juror looks at George Zimmerman and say, yeah, I probably would have been scared of Trayvon too. They look at Darren Wilson and say, yeah, I probably would have shot Mike Brown too. Accepting all the facts of the case, but still saying this is what I would have done in that person's shoes. And that gets compounded by the fact that not only is there the race angle, but there's the officer angle. Jurors are often asked not to ask what a reasonable person would do, but what a reasonable police officer would do. That's the legal standard in many places, in many contexts, but also in everyday speech, we say, oh, police have a tough job. Oh, police have to make split-second decisions. Oh, police have to decide whether someone's armed or unarmed in a split second. And so they make mistakes. And I say, you know what? Police do have to make very high-stakes decisions in very short amounts of time. That's why I wouldn't be a cop. One of the many reasons. That's why they shouldn't be cops. If the job is so difficult and dangerous and high stakes that you end up shooting people who didn't do it, who didn't deserve it, who were unarmed, etc., then you shouldn't be a cop. In this country, too often it's one thing to say we give police the benefit of the doubt. Everyone deserves the benefit of the doubt. But there are moments where there is no doubt. And yet we still continue. We still continue to exonerate killer cops. And people say, see, Mark, this has nothing to do with race. The police officers are Black. So all this talk about Black people and dangerous Black men, the cops are Black, Mark. That's true. But guess what? Some of the biggest purveyors of white supremacy appear in Black bodies. And many police officers, including Black ones, have deep-seated hatred or deep-seated fear or deep-seated anxiety or deep-seated distrust of Blackness and Black people. And the anti-Blackness and the racism that shapes American policing doesn't skip over Black people. Now, I'm not saying every Black cop is the same. Just like every white cop ain't the same. I've met plenty of cops that ain't trying to do no harm. Most cops I know just want to come home. Most cops I know just don't want no trouble. Everybody just be cool. Don't start no one beating up. That's true. The issue isn't individual cops any more than the issue of education's individual teachers, right? We all know great teachers. Doesn't mean that the schooling system isn't corrupt and incapable of producing good outcomes or fair outcomes. Similarly, police, some great cops. There's some great cops in the world in terms of interpersonally, in terms of their lives, in terms of their social engagements, in terms of their private engagements, in terms of their charitable and philanthropic work, in terms of their faith, in terms of their parent, whatever. They could be great people, but they are part of a system that produces extraordinary amounts of harm in the service of protecting the property and the capital of the bourgeois. And so I don't give a damn that these officers are Black and not white. It doesn't make me feel any better. If I'm Tyre Nichols' loved one, I don't feel better that he was killed by Black cops. Dr. King didn't march so we could get beaten and shot by Black police officers, and that they would be exonerated by a Black mayor. Like that's not it's progress. That's not justice. That's not what we're here for. So all I can say is we got a long way to go. It'll be interesting to see what the feds do, but it wouldn't shock me if everybody here gets a much greater slap on the wrist than their actions would warrant. And I'm using this very careful language because I'm an abolitionist. At the end of the day, I don't want this to be the solution to most of our problems, and certainly not all of our problems, right? I'm not convinced that we can let me say it differently. I don't know how, and I've been writing all day about abolition and thinking through this stuff, but I don't know how to do it. I don't know what to deal with this, how to deal with this. I mean, like, what do you do when you got 5 Black people policing a Black community and they kill a Black person who didn't deserve any of it? Can we arrest our way out of that problem? Doesn't look like it. Could we prosecute our way out of that problem? It doesn't seem like it.